was told that I couldn't go into the VFW because Vietnam wasn't a war. I couldn't even go into the fucking VFW. I was told I was not eligible for VA medical because it was only Vietnam. So while I was back in Oklahoma, a buddy of mine had a very fancy European racing motorcycle and wanted me to ride it in a 6-hour enduro on the John Zink Ranch there. And on the first lap, I fell it was down into a gully and then straight up the other side, and this thing had a false neutral, so you'd feel like you'd shifted into gear, clanked, but it wasn't in gear. So when I gave it gas, it wasn't in gear, and I popped it in and then hit it, and it came up, and I fell off. I was wearing a thing like a catcher's shin guard, but my knee came down on top of a sharp edge on a sandstone ledge, and the bike came down on the back of my knee. And that might be the most intense pain I've ever had. I mean, it was just hideous. And I lay there thinking, shit, it's going to be 6 hours before they'll send a... This was on the first lap, maybe the second. So eventually I got back up and got the thing started and finished the race. We had to cut my Levi's off me. My knee was swelled up until it was about to burst. But even with that, I didn't think I could go to the doctor. I felt so shunned. And the man who had been like a father to me was a senior physician over there in the VA hospital. I felt like people, I knew they didn't understand, and I couldn't make them understand. And when I tried to make them understand, they didn't want to hear it. The ones who had been on the ground were in seclusion. I couldn't find them. There were a couple. Ed Roach had joined the Marines, had been a grunt, and he had written me, said, don't come over here. Don't do it. I know you're planning to come. Don't do it.
And he was back in the States when you were...
No. He was in Vietnam.
Oh,
he had written me from Vietnam, and I couldn't find him. He had headed for Michigan. And another guy, Steve Lindsay, who'd been a very good friend of mine in college, had also joined the Marines. Had been a grunt officer, and he had written me saying, don't come. He said, it's not what you think it is, don't come. But I went. And, I mean, in a Buddhist sense, the entire country is responsible for the killing. Both they who did it and the ones who chose to be oblivious to it and the ones who profited from it. When I came back, obviously I had PTSD. I mean, I was classic for years in the Philippines. I could not sit anywhere in a restaurant except in the far corner, my back to the wall, my arms free, where I could watch the door and windows. I couldn't do it. If I was startled, or I was attacked twice on the street in Manila, once by a watch snatcher who had a knife in one hand and tried to snatch my watch on a dark street, and I broke his head with my Nikon. I mean, blocked and full roundhouse with a Nikon F2. And then pulled out my Swiss Army knife and took off. He had come out of one of those motorized tricycles, and his buddy had pulled him into that and taken off, and I pulled out my Swiss Army knife. I was going to get them both. I mean, when that stuff triggered, it was fearsome, and it took me a long time to figure out what to do about it. It also, I think, was both more difficult and more enriching for me because living as I did in Asia for all those years, I hadn't just killed gooks. There was something in Vietnam called the MGR, which stood for the Mere Gook Rule, which meant if you killed a zipperhead, it was only a zipperhead. It was only a slant or a gook or some other racist equivalent to nigger. But I had good times. I got to know and respect so many of those little people who had kicked our butts, even though they did not have a single battleship, no helicopters, no jets, no tanks, some tanks, a few tanks. They didn't have any of that shit, though. And they kicked our butts because they were stronger inside. As Colonel Kurtz said. And I felt like I owed them so much.